It was one of those cold, gray Thursdays where even the sky looks like it gave up. My return flight from Atlanta got canceled due to a mechanical issue, so the airline rerouted me through an earlier connection. I didn't tell Savannah. I figured I'd just show up, maybe bring takeout from her favorite Thai spot and surprise her. We hadn't had much time together lately, and I thought, naively in hindsight, that she'd be happy to see me. Instead, I got home to find a stranger's car parked down the block from our driveway. It was a silver sedan, clean, newer model. Not a neighbor's. I know all their cars by now, from the retired teacher next door to the college kid who lives 3 houses down and always parks too close to the fire hydrant. This wasn't one of them. My first thought was maybe a friend had dropped by. But as I got closer to the front door, something tightened in my chest. It was unlocked. Savannah always locked it, even if she was just heading to the mailbox. I hesitated for a second before stepping inside. The smell hit me instantly. Incense, something floral and cloying, and red wine. But underneath that was something sharper, something chemical and masculine. Cologne. It lingered in the air like someone had just walked past. I stopped in the entryway, my fingers tightening around the keys in my hand. Then I heard it. A low male voice, faint, coming from the kitchen or maybe the back hallway. I couldn't make out what was being said, but it was there, confident, too comfortable. That's when Savannah appeared, out of nowhere, almost like she had been waiting for this moment. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and for a split second, her entire body stiffened. In the same breath, she flinched and tossed her phone, literally threw it, into the kitchen sink like it had burned her. "Trevor!" she exclaimed, her voice pitched too high, too light. "What are you doing home? You didn't say." "I took an earlier flight," I said, still standing in the doorway. She moved toward me, hair pulled back, makeup too fresh for a casual afternoon alone. She was wearing one of her favorite outfits. Jeans that fit like they were tailored and a fitted top she usually saved for when we were going out. Not something she threw on to lounge around in. Something about that detail stuck with me more than it should have. "Oh," she said quickly, brushing her hands down her sides like she had to reset herself. "I just lit some incense. It was getting stuffy in here, and I had a headache. Thought it might help." I didn't respond right away. My eyes scanned the living room, then drifted to the dining table where 2 glasses of red wine were waiting, both partially full. One had a visible lipstick stain on the rim, a smudge in that berry shade she liked. The other had no stain, but it sat closer to her side, and when I leaned in slightly, I caught the scent again. That same cologne, subtle but undeniably male. "I see you opened a bottle," I said flatly. "Yeah," she laughed nervously. I wasn't sure what I felt like, so I poured 2. Dumb, I know. I was just bored. Watching something dumb on Netflix and figured why not. The laugh didn't reach her eyes. Her tone was all wrong, like she was trying to stick to a script she hadn't rehearsed enough. I took a few steps further into the house. The male voice was gone. Nothing but the hum of the fridge and the distant rumble of traffic outside. But the silence inside was heavier than usual. My eyes swept the hallway toward our bedroom and the back door beyond it, which was unlocked and cracked slightly open. "Were you expecting someone?" I asked casually, watching her closely. She blinked too fast. "No, of course not." I gestured toward the other wine glass. "Then who's that for?" "I told you," she said, flashing a tight smile. I poured both. One had a weird taste. I was trying to decide which one I liked better. I nodded slowly but didn't say anything. She started fussing with the glasses then, picking them up and walking them to the kitchen like the whole thing had been a minor oversight. I followed her, still trying to place the voice I'd heard, the scent in the air, the tension that now clung to everything like static. She turned on the faucet and dropped both glasses into the sink, along with the phone she had tossed earlier. It clanked against the ceramic before she turned her back, hiding it behind her as she wiped her hands on a towel. "You sure everything's okay?" I asked, my voice low. Savannah turned around with a smile that was all show and no substance. "Of course. You just surprised me. That's all." There was something off in her eyes, something guarded, and I could feel it too. A wall had gone up between us, and it was made of invisible things. Little inconsistencies, the sudden shift in energy, the smell of someone else in our house, and that voice, that brief, muffled voice that didn't belong to anyone I knew. I didn't press her. I didn't ask who had just slipped out the back door or why her phone suddenly needed to be dunked in water. I just nodded slowly and pretended to let it go. But something had changed. I could feel it in the way she hovered too close, as if trying to steer my attention. In how quickly she redirected the conversation to dinner plans and my canceled flight. She was smiling too much, too brightly, like someone who's trying to cover a crack in the wall with a fresh coat of paint. But I'd already seen the crack. That night, I couldn't shake it. The details kept looping in my mind like scenes from a play that didn't quite match the script. I remembered when she used to call me when she was home alone, asking when I'd be back because she hated the silence. Now she didn't even blink when I walked in unexpectedly. No texts. No sign of a normal day. Just wine, perfume, and a disappearing voice. Whatever explanation she gave didn't matter anymore. The question had already been planted. It wasn't what she said that lingered, it was what she didn't say. And in that silence, something in me shifted too. That night, lying beside Savannah in the dark, I stared at the ceiling while her breath came slow and even. If she was pretending to be asleep, she was doing a damn good job. And maybe that alone should have been a sign how comfortable she seemed with silence now. How effortless the deception felt. I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't let me. It kept looping back to that moment in the kitchen, her flinching when she saw me, the muffled male voice, the faint scent of cologne on the rim of a wine glass. I wanted to dismiss it, to chalk it up to paranoia or jet lag or some cocktail of both. But the feeling hadn't left me. It had settled like dust inside my lungs, coating everything, making it hard to breathe. She had tried so hard to deflect, to talk over the unease. But I noticed things. I always noticed things, I just hadn't wanted to admit they mattered before. Lying there in the dark, I started mentally walking back through the last few months. And the more I looked, the more I saw. It began innocently, like all betrayals do. A sudden work trip that came up last minute. Savannah had never traveled for her job before, not once in the 6 years we'd been together. Then suddenly she was packing for Denver, talking about a training session that no one else seemed to know about. I remembered her printing a fake itinerary. I hadn't thought about it until now, but something about the font had looked off. Like it was quickly cobbled together. Then there was the perfume. Savannah used to hate perfume. Said it made her nauseous. For years, she'd worn nothing stronger than lavender hand lotion. Then out of nowhere, she started dabbing this designer fragrance on her wrists before work. I remember asking about it once, half joking, and she said her coworkers had been gifting samples and she wanted to try something different. But the scent had lingered on her skin even when she claimed she hadn't worn it that day. I started noticing the way she guarded her phone. At first, it was subtle, face down during dinner, screen dimmed to the lowest setting. Then came the new passcode. I didn't even know when she changed it. I picked up her phone one night to set an alarm while she was in the shower, and it buzzed me off with a prompt I didn't recognize. When I asked her about it, she said it was a company policy for work privacy. But she never used to care about that. We used to share everything. Now, her phone might as well have been a locked safe. Then there was the night she told me she'd broken her phone. She came home with a fresh device and a story about how it slipped from her hand into a storm drain while she was taking a walk on her lunch break. The story was strange, convoluted. She said the phone had water damage, but it was never returned to the carrier. No repairs, no replacement through the insurance we paid for monthly. Just gone. And the new one? Clean. No old photos. No texts. Not even her usual apps installed. Just a handful of essentials and a blank wallpaper. I asked her if she'd backed it up. She said she hadn't. Which was a lie, I'd seen her do it automatically before. My mind drifted to the cousin trip. 2 weekends ago, she told me she was heading to Lake Tahoe with her cousin Madison. They hadn't seen each other in a while, and it was supposed to be a girls' weekend, no signal, no distractions. I didn't argue. I figured she needed it. But then one night, I was scrolling through social media, mindlessly swiping, and I came across Madison's story, a series of photos from a music festival in Austin, Texas. Posted the same weekend Savannah claimed they were sipping wine in a mountain cabin. At the time, I chalked it up to a mistake. Maybe Madison bailed last minute and Savannah went alone. But that didn't make sense either. She came back sunburned. The kind of sunburn you don't get in the mountains. The lies had stacked themselves neatly, one on top of the other, like bricks in a wall I hadn't realized she'd been building between us. And the thing that hurt most? I'd helped her build it. Every time I ignored my gut, every time I chose to trust the story instead of the truth, I handed her another brick. Now, I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't pretend it didn't feel like I was sharing my bed with someone I didn't recognize. I turned to look at her. She was facing away from me, her breathing still steady, a slight curl in her fingers resting above the blanket. It was the picture of peace. But to me, it looked rehearsed. I didn't want to believe it. God, I didn't. Part of me still hoped there was some other explanation. Some reason, however convoluted, that would make everything feel normal again. But normal had slipped away weeks ago, and I'd been too blind to realize it. A few days after the wine glass incident, she brought up her boss's name in conversation. She mentioned late meetings and project deadlines and casually dropped that she might need to stay overnight in the city sometime soon because the commute back is *ling me. My stomach turned. Her job had always been predictable. 9 to 5. Maybe a little email work at night, but never overnight trips. I nodded and didn't push back, but I added another mental note to the file that was growing in my head. A list of small things that, when put together, painted a very different picture. And that picture was growing sharper by the day. I started doing little things I never thought I'd do. I checked the credit card statements. I never used to. We'd always trusted each other with finances. But now I was hunting for patterns, charges that didn't add up. One afternoon, I found a hotel receipt. Not local, but within driving distance. She said it was a client lunch that ran long. But the timestamp was 10:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I told myself I needed more than suspicion. I needed something irrefutable. Because deep down, I knew that if I accused her too soon and she had time to cover her tracks, I'd never get the truth. I started paying attention to her schedule like it was a job. She said she was going to the gym? I noted the time. Claimed to be stuck at work? I checked the traffic report. Said her phone died? I looked at when her last message came through and how quickly it went dark. She was careful, frustratingly so. Whatever she was doing, she had rehearsed it. Polished it. Like she'd spent time planning every word, every excuse. But even the best liars leave behind crumbs. It's in the hesitation before a response. The subtle shift in routine. The glance over a shoulder before answering a call. The sudden silence when I enter a room. I started keeping my own calendar, not of her lies, but of my suspicions. A timeline. My gut had been off for months, but now I had dates, details. Tangible proof that something was off. And when I looked at it all, side by side, there was only one conclusion to draw. This wasn't new. It wasn't a slip-up, a one-time mistake. It was a pattern. Practiced. Intentional. Hidden in plain sight. And the worst part? She never thought I'd look close enough to see it. It was a Wednesday night when I finally crossed the line, from suspicion to certainty. I sat in the living room alone, the TV playing some documentary I wasn't watching, while Savannah texted someone on the other end of the couch. Her screen lit her face in flashes of white and blue, and every time I looked over, she tilted it just slightly away from me. I asked who she was texting. She said it was her boss about a last-minute meeting the next day. I nodded, but I already knew she was lying. What she didn't know was that I had access to our home's security cloud. We'd installed a small, barely visible set of cameras over a year ago, one by the garage, one facing the backyard, and another tucked discreetly in the hallway near the back door. At the time, it was for safety. We'd had a couple of car break-ins in the neighborhood, and Savannah was nervous walking in at night. I set the cameras up, synced them to the cloud, and mostly forgot about them. Until now. That night, after she went to bed claiming she had an early start the next morning, I slipped into the office and pulled up the archived feeds. My heart was pounding, not out of fear, but anticipation. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly. Part of me hoped there would be nothing. That I'd scroll through hours of footage and find only empty rooms, flickering lights, the usual nighttime quiet. But that wasn't what I found. I started with a night she said she was at the gym. It was about 2 weeks ago. She had left in her usual workout gear, tight leggings and a hoodie, carrying a water bottle and her earbuds. I watched the feed from the front door. She left around 6:15 p.m., locking the door behind her. Then I pulled up the feed from the backyard camera, the one facing the side gate. At exactly 6:33 p.m., she returned. Not through the front, but the back. She came in fast, like she didn't want to be seen from the street. She opened the gate, slipped inside, and motioned to someone out of frame. That's when he appeared. A man. Mid-30s, dark hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. He looked around before following her inside. She shut the door quickly behind them. They didn't go to the living room or kitchen. They went straight toward the hallway, toward our bedroom. I watched, breath frozen in my chest, as the hallway camera captured them. They weren't holding hands or making out like something from a movie. It was worse than that. They were practiced, comfortable. She led the way, and he followed like this wasn't his first time. No hesitation, no guilt. They didn't even turn on the lights. But the faint glow from outside, just enough moonlight bleeding through the blinds, outlined their silhouettes. I could see her take off her hoodie, toss it on the bed. I could see him pull his sweatshirt over his head. Then the footage cut out as they moved deeper into the room, out of the hallway's view. I sat there, numb, staring at the paused frame for a long time. My chest was tight, my stomach twisting. I wanted to yell, to smash something, to wake her up and throw the footage in her face. But I didn't. I hit download instead. I saved the entire clip, starting from when she left through the front to when she snuck him in through the back. I labeled it with the date and time and stored it in a secure folder under a fake file name. Then I went back to the camera logs and pulled up a few other dates. She had done it before. Different days, different times, same pattern. She'd leave through the front, come back through the back, let him in and disappear into the bedroom. Once, it was during a weekend I had gone to visit my brother. Another time, it was the night she claimed to have gotten stuck in traffic after work and arrived home exhausted. There was even one clip where she opened the back gate barefoot, dressed in a robe, and ran back inside holding his hand like they were teenagers sneaking around their parents. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was a full-blown affair, carefully planned, coordinated, and worst of all, comfortable. They moved like this was routine, like they had their own private rhythm, one I was never supposed to see. I don't know how long I sat in that chair, just staring at the screen. At some point, I realized the sun had started to rise. I hadn't slept. I hadn't even blinked much, but I felt clearer than I had in months. There was no more wondering, no more excuses, no more gaslighting myself into believing I was imagining it. I knew, and now I had proof. When Savannah came downstairs a few hours later, she was wearing the same gym leggings, like a sick echo of the footage I'd watched. She kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted coffee. I told her no. I said I had an early work call and needed to be in the office. She didn't press. I watched her from the hallway as she sipped her coffee and checked her phone, smiling at something. Probably him. Maybe she was texting him about how she got away with it again. She had no idea that her game was over. That night, after she went to sleep, I disconnected the cameras. Not the whole system, just the parts she didn't know about. I didn't want her to get suspicious. I wiped all evidence from the cloud except the clips I had downloaded and stored elsewhere. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because now that I had the truth, I wanted to make sure I did this right. I wanted to make sure that when this ended, and it would be on my terms. Not in a shouting match or a teary confession, but with silence, precision, finality. She had been playing chess in the dark, thinking I couldn't see the board. But I just flipped on the lights. Once the shock wore off, it was replaced by a kind of cold, methodical calm. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't angry, not in the way I thought I'd be. I didn't want to scream or smash plates. I didn't even want to confront her. What I wanted, what I needed, was distance, clarity, plan. So I made one. Over the next several days, I became someone else. On the outside, I was still the same husband, cordial, tired from work, quietly scrolling through emails on the couch. But inside, I had switched tracks. Every interaction with Savannah became a performance. Every smile a decoy. While she texted someone under the table or slipped off to run errands, I was making moves she'd never see coming. Step 1 was money. I opened a private checking account at a credit union across town. Nothing flashy. Just a clean, empty account in my name only. I moved funds quietly, small transfers at first, then a few larger ones masked by our monthly bills. It wasn't about draining anything or being vindictive. I just wanted protection. I had no idea how deep her lies went, and I wasn't about to let her take a financial swing if things turned ugly. I also froze any plans we'd made jointly. No new purchases. No big payments. I canceled the down payment we'd scheduled for a patio remodel, one we'd apparently been saving for together. I called the contractor and blamed a family emergency. He understood. Then came the house. Our home had been under both our names for 5 years. It was our forever home, or so I had told myself when we signed the closing papers. Now it was a chess piece. I contacted a lawyer. A discreet one recommended by a friend who'd gone through a brutal divorce a few years back. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. I told him I had reason to believe my wife had been unfaithful, that I had video evidence, and that I wanted to prepare quietly before taking any legal steps. He nodded, professional but not unfeeling. He suggested a few things: place my stake in the house under a trust, separate personal and shared business assets, move any intellectual property related to my freelance contracts into protected holding, change passwords, digital keys, cloud backups. It felt surreal. Sitting in a conference room talking about trusts and contingency clauses while the woman I slept beside every night kissed another man behind my back. But this wasn't about revenge. This was defense. I was preparing for war without firing a single sh*t. My attorney helped me set up a trust for my business, nothing fancy, just enough to ensure Savannah couldn't make claims on something she had never been part of. I also rerouted payments from my clients to the new account. Again, nothing that would raise her suspicions. She never paid much attention to where the money came from, only that it showed up on time. Then I started packing. Not everything. Just the essentials. A couple of suitcases tucked neatly into the trunk of my car. My work laptop. Important documents. Family photos. A couple of keepsakes that meant something to me but nothing to her. I even packed a few of my childhood journals, things I hadn't touched in years but suddenly felt the need to protect. Every day felt like a countdown. Every breakfast we shared, every casual kiss goodbye, I was already gone in my head. Detached. Focused. Watching her with a strange, clinical detachment. The way she looked at her phone and smiled. The sudden bursts of "oh, I forgot something" as she dashed back into the house after leaving. The way she locked the bathroom door now when she took showers, something she'd never done before. She didn't suspect a thing. She still thought she was winning. The night before I left, I cooked dinner. Chicken marsala, her favorite. We ate quietly, laughed about something we'd seen online. She told me she might be late tomorrow, something about an off-site meeting. I nodded. Told her to be careful. She kissed me after dinner and said, "You're the best, you know that?" I didn't flinch. I just smiled and cleared the plates. When she went to sleep, I sat in the living room one last time, just me and the dim light from the corner lamp. I looked around at the furniture we'd picked out together, the wall where we'd hung framed concert posters, the little trinkets from weekend trips. It all felt so distant now. Like I had been a guest in someone else's house. At midnight, I printed the documents. I had backed up everything: videos, text, *TS, financial records, bank statements. I saved them all to a flash drive and labeled it simply June. No name, no dates. Just that. I printed the key emails. A few of the hotel invoices. Her texts from the cloud backup she didn't know I had access to. I compiled everything into a plain manila envelope. Then I wrote the letter. Not angry. Not bitter. Just factual. Cold even. I told her I knew. That I had known for weeks. That I had chosen not to confront her because I didn't want to yell or break things or be dragged into a circus of explanations. I told her this wasn't about punishing her, it was about protecting myself. I told her by the time she read the letter I would be gone. I placed the envelope on the kitchen counter next to the coffee machine she always used first thing in the morning. Beside it I left my wedding band. Not on top of the papers, not buried beneath. Just sitting there quietly. I wiped my laptop and powered it off. I turned off my phone and dropped it into the drawer where we kept takeout menus and old chargers. Then I walked out the front door and closed it gently behind me. I didn't look back. The rental house was already waiting. A small place an hour away, furnished, nothing fancy. Just mine. The fridge was empty, the walls bare, but the silence? It was clean. It wasn't filled with secrets or shadows or the ghost of a lie curled up next to me in bed. My attorney had everything he needed. The divorce paperwork was prepped and waiting. He would deliver it at the right time when it would land with precision. I had already changed my mailing address. Removed myself from shared subscriptions. Disconnected every digital tether that bound us. And now I waited. Not for her apology. Not for revenge. But for peace. The kind you earn after walking through a storm without raising your voice. The kind that comes from knowing you didn't just survive betrayal, you outmaneuvered it. I didn't hear anything from Savannah for the first 2 days after I left. No calls. No texts. No emails. Nothing. It almost surprised me how quiet it was. I pictured her waking up that Friday morning, finding the letter, the flash drive, the wedding band, each item a punctuation mark on the sentence I'd been writing for weeks. She would have stood in the kitchen, still half asleep, expecting a cup of coffee and maybe a kiss on the cheek. Instead, she found absence. Not just mine, but a vacuum of every expectation she had taken for granted. I imagined her calling my name, checking the driveway, realizing I was gone, and then reading my letter. But if she cried, I didn't see it. If she panicked, it wasn't mine to witness. That was part of the point. I had removed myself from her equation. On Monday morning, her silence finally cracked. It started with a string of texts. I didn't read them. My phone, the new one with a clean number, didn't allow her through. But I checked my old number's account online, just out of curiosity. The messages came in like clockwork. Where are you? Trevor, please call me. I don't understand what's going on. Can we talk? Please. Whatever this is, we can fix it. Then came the voicemail transcriptions. Her voice, at first concerned, then confused, then trembling. I didn't respond. She didn't deserve my voice. Later that day, my attorney called to confirm she had been served. The divorce papers had arrived via courier, time-stamped, signed for by her directly. She had tried calling his office 4 times within the hour, then emailed a 10-paragraph statement denying the characterization of events. His assistant read it, flagged it as emotionally loaded but legally irrelevant, and filed it. That same afternoon, another domino fell. This one wasn't from me. It came from her workplace. You see, the man I had seen in the security footage, the one she had guided quietly into our home, was not just a stranger. He was a coworker. Senior to her. Married too. What she didn't realize is that I had compiled a meticulous timeline of their interactions, dates, locations, nights she had claimed to be working late, and footage that showed otherwise. She had used company time, company travel, and in at least one case, a corporate hotel to carry on their affair. My attorney called it a potential HR bombshell. And it was. We didn't go scorched earth. I didn't publish photos online or air grievances in a revenge post. But we did what was necessary. My lawyer sent an anonymous report to her company's compliance team. It included time-stamped security footage, expense discrepancies, and communication records pulled from our shared account before I left. We didn't sign it. We didn't need to. On Tuesday, Savannah was summoned by HR. She showed up in a beige trench coat over business attire, just like she had for years. But the moment she walked in, she was no longer one of them. Her name was flagged in the system. Her access badge was temporarily suspended. She thought she could explain. That it was personal. That it wouldn't affect her job. She was wrong. Corporate reviewed the evidence. The other man, Paul Hastings, director of client strategy, was pulled into a separate meeting within hours. By the end of the day, Paul was walked out of the building. Not just terminated, but with legal documents handed to him citing conflict of interest, breach of policy, and exposure to client liability. Savannah was not terminated. Not yet. But she was placed on indefinite suspension pending the outcome of an ethics review. Her inbox was frozen. Her team was reassigned. She was told, in exact words, that her role had become a reputational risk to the firm. By Thursday, word had gotten out. Her name disappeared from internal distribution lists. The Slack channels. Her colleagues, some of whom I recognized from old holiday parties, began distancing themselves. One friend texted her that weekend and got no reply. Another left her on read after she sent a desperate message trying to explain what happened. The fallout wasn't just professional. It was personal. Her family called. Her younger sister reached out to mutual friends. I heard, through a side channel, that her parents were confused she hadn't told them anything. She had gone from perfectly composed to noticeably unraveling in less than a week. Meanwhile, I was quiet. No posts. No angry updates. No bitter confessions to friends. I kept living. I went to work. I read books. I jogged the trail behind my rental house every morning. I listened to podcasts. I breathed. The contrast was sharp. She was imploding in public silence. I was thriving in private solitude. By Friday night, I received an email. Subject, please, Trevor. It was from her personal address. I opened it because I knew exactly what it would be and I wanted to see just how far she had come undone. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I'm begging you to listen. I don't know how this all happened. One minute we were fine and the next, you're gone and my life is falling apart. They suspended me. Paul is gone. My family won't look at me. People at work are talking. I don't know what you told them. I don't even know if you were the one who told them. But I can't breathe anymore. I need to talk to you. Please, if you ever loved me, if any of what we had meant anything, call me. Let me fix this. Fix this. That's what she said. As if you can fix a person the same way you fix a leaky faucet or a scratch on your car. As if what she did hadn't been a repeated choice, over and over again. She wasn't sorry for the betrayal. She was sorry for the consequences. That night I didn't reply. I archived the email, flagged it as do not respond, and poured myself a drink. I stood on the back porch of my rental and watched the city lights blink in the distance. The breeze was cool, clean, and for the first time in what felt like a year, I felt the faint, steady beat of peace return. Savannah's world was collapsing, and I hadn't raised my voice once. Weeks passed in quiet rhythm. Savannah's messages slowed, then stopped. Maybe she finally understood there'd be no response. Or maybe she was simply too occupied picking up the shattered pieces of her carefully constructed world. October rolled around, bringing with it the faint bite of fall. One morning, I got an automated email, a reminder for a cabin reservation we used to keep every year. It was tradition. A small lakeside cabin we discovered during our first fall together, tucked away in the woods where the cell signal faded and the world felt a little softer. She must have gotten the same reminder. Sure enough, 3 days later, she showed up. She drove out to the cabin alone, still clinging to some flicker of hope. Maybe she thought I'd be there. Maybe she imagined I'd greet her on the porch, coffee in hand, the air heavy with second chances. Instead, all she found was silence and a single envelope. I had driven up the day before and left it waiting for her on the kitchen table beneath the window that looked out over the water. Inside was a handwritten note and a photograph. The note was brief. Some things can't be unbroken. I hope you find what you're looking for. T. And the photo? It was me, standing by that same lake, but not alone. My arm was around someone else. A woman. You couldn't see her face clearly, but the warmth was unmistakable. We weren't posing. We were caught mid-laughter like someone had snapped it without us noticing. There were no words scribbled on the back. No threats. No final pleas. Just that image. Savannah didn't stay. She left that same evening, the cabin just as empty as it had been before she arrived. I imagine the drive home was quieter than the forest roads that led her there. She never tried to contact me again. A week later, she returned to what used to be her home. But it wasn't ours anymore. A young couple was moving in boxes on the porch, a child playing in the yard. The mailbox bore a different name, the address relisted under a new number. Even the paint had changed. She stood on the curb staring. The neighbors she once waved to didn't acknowledge her. Some looked through their curtains. Others avoided her gaze entirely. Word had gotten around. Her world had moved on. And so had I. She searched for me online, but found nothing. My social media was gone. Numbers changed. Mutual friends? Silent. My presence had been scrubbed clean, like I'd never existed in her orbit at all. There were no accusations, no confrontations, no scenes. Only absence. The kind that doesn't scream, it erodes. Slowly. Permanently. And in the end, that's what she was left with. Not a man to argue with. Not a story to twist. Just silence. And the irreversible truth that she hadn't been replaced out of vengeance, but out of necessity.